Hello, my name is Nate Johnson. I'm the founder and CEO of GLCS, and this is Driving Forward's Tuesday Trip. Welcome to the Tuesday's Trip. Today we're going to talk about broker visibility. But first, we'll talk a little bit about what's upcoming. Thursday, we'll have a great guest on the Driving Forward podcast at 1 o'clock Central Time. My friend Robert Bain, the strongest man in logistics, will be in attendance. We'll be talking about logistics operational models, about investing in people, and ongoing training and education, and then technology as an enhancement and not as a replacement. A lot of this subject matter is near and dear to my heart, as it's things I talk about on a day-to-day basis. Robert and I will probably need about 4 hours, so I'd expect to see him back frequently. The following Thursday, December 21st, we're going to bring the GLCS crew back to bring in the holiday season. So the GLCS crew that was on a few weeks ago, everyone's bringing a topic that they want to talk about, whether it's transportation related or otherwise. So I'm really excited. We had a lot of fun about a month ago, and we should have a blast Thursday, December 21st. So coming up also this Saturday, December 16th, GLCS will be attending Wreaths Across America at Fort Snelling National Cemetery in Minneapolis. We'll be assisting with the wreath placing ceremony. If you're in the Minneapolis area and wish to attend, we have plenty of extra space. If you want to donate to Wreaths Across America, it's wreathsacrossamerica.org. They're always looking for assistance. So with that being said, there's been a lot of discussion lately about the federal regulation 49 CFR 371.3. I think lots of people have labeled it as broker visibility. So really, the broker visibility is around a variety of different rules or regulations, primarily, and I've spoken about this a couple of times now, but I wanted to designate an entire Tuesday trip to it. Primarily, it's focused around the requirement that a carrier can request from the broker the amount of compensation received by the broker for brokerage services performed and the name of the payer to the broker. So, and that's all defined underneath this 49 CFR 371.3. And there's a lot of tumultuous discussion happening within the industry surrounding this. I'm neutral on the subject, although I kind of lean towards the broker on this to some extension, primarily because who wants to spend all this time building a book of business to hand over your rates, to hand over your customer list, to hand over basically everything that you work for to a party that could then turn around and go solicit them, even though you do have in your contract a non-solicitation agreement for that particular customer. So with that being said, looking at it from a carrier's perspective, there is a desire, I know, from the carrier to ensure that they're not being exploited by the broker. In this particular regulation, it does state that a broker needs to identify non-freight charges collected by the broker as well. So if there is charges on an order that are there for someone putting someone on site at at a shipper, or overhead for any particular reason, lumper charges, et cetera, it should be stated there. Unfortunately, in most situations, similar to the example that we've all probably heard about in relation to TQL, where they have a 47% margin, we're really not able to get to the details of it due to non-disclosures. So we're not able to see the line items of that where, there's a 47% margin on this particular order, but we can't necessarily see the line item on it to understand, what are the particulars of this individual order. So with that all being said, there's certainly scenarios where loads are going to pay higher margins and loads are going to pay negative margins. There's many scenarios where brokers lose money, and there's many scenarios where brokers make money, and they make a lot of money. Just like a carrier will have a great paying load and a carrier may lose money. So, these are scenarios that you as a business owner, as an owner operator, or whatever may make a choice on to operate. And it's no different to any sort of sales organization that you're going to make decisions surrounding executing your business for your customers based upon that type of knowledge. So in a case of this 49 CFR 371.3, it does take a scenario where someone has done sales work outside of your organization, and you're now somehow able to get access to that sales work and use it for your own knowledge. So it may be an antiquated regulation, and it may not be applicable in today's age. Now, the narrative on the carrier side also is brokers are running around charging $4 to $5 per mile to the customers and only paying carriers $1.50 or $1.70 or $2 a mile, and they're pocketing these large margins everywhere that we go. And I simply don't see the data to back that up en masse. There's certainly singular transactions that can happen that support that data, but I don't see it en masse. So I also see a lot of discussion around the comparison of a freight broker to a real estate agent or a stockbroker. And I wanted to take a few moments to discuss the two or the three different roles. So specifically, a freight broker to a real estate agent, someone who brokers a real estate transaction. I've heard lots of people talk about real estate transaction being fixed at 6% of the sale, and they're not, and that cost is identified up front and agreed upon up front. And many people think that I've talked to think that freight brokerages should be fixed at that same 6% or potentially 10%. And I don't think that's a fair number either. The primary reason is, a real estate transaction is a large dollar transaction, and selling freight is not. And it's something that does require many different moving parts to it. Real estate is an entirely different world than freight brokerage. They're apples and oranges. It's just not something that can be compared to one another. Real estates also require an education course. I believe here in Minnesota, at least, they have to go through 90 hours of an education course and get certified. And then, it does take quite some time to build up a book of business as a real estate agent to get to become successful. So you can't just decide to be a real estate agent and become one. Comparing a freight broker to a stockbroker is actually further than a real estate agent. So stockbrokers are required. Well, first off, most stockbrokers are going to carry some level of education. Not all. It's not a requirement to be degreed or carry a bachelor's degree, but most stockbrokers are going to have some level of education. all stockbrokers are going to have at a minimum 2 exams that they pass. The Series 7 exam, which is a securities exam that enables you to sell securities such as stocks. A Series 63 exam allows you to, or is a exam that focuses on state laws and regulations. Then, dependent upon employers or your specialties, there's many other regulations or many other exams that are out there as well. Things that allow you to sell commodities, manage futures, health insurance, life insurance, disability, etc. And uh, you know, all in all, stockbrokers are very regulated. To become a stockbroker, typically you have to pass a criminal and financial background check. And stocks are traded in high volumes. They're in very high volumes in comparison to freight. It's just simply not something that you can look at. The commonality here is the term broker. That's really the commonality, is that we're looking at the semantics of this particular role. So someone is taking something and selling it. So in the case of a freight broker, they have sales teams. And if it's a small freight broker, that might be the same person. That freight broker is going out and selling to a customer, saying that they can transport an order or a load from point A to B, and that they're going to arrange transportation from point A to B. And for anyone that's ever sold freight, that's not always the easiest thing to do. That can be some of the hardest things to do. When I had my trucking company, it was certainly one of the most difficult things for me to learn to do. So I was not a salesperson back then, and it took me quite some time. So selling logistics is actually sometimes even harder than selling trucks. Sometimes if the market is right, you walk in the door and say, "Hey, I have trucks for sale," and people just flock to you. So uh, ultimately, freight brokers have sales reps that call on customers and work lanes, and that all costs money beyond just the person handling the phones and finding trucks and negotiating that deal with the driver, the carrier, etc. So once again, I've seen narratives online recently that seem to think that freight brokerages are moving loads at $4 to $5 a mile, and that's simply not the case. Certainly, there are niche operations where certain carriers, certain subsectors of the industry can get freight at $4 to $5 a mile. I was on a group the other night that was asking where should you operate in, or what sort of sector of the industry is the best to drive within, and it was commented around cement, chemical, finished automotive, etc. And those all pay quite a bit better than other areas of the industry, or at least historically have. But as a whole, if we look at, over the road dry van, over the road flatbed, over the road refrigerated, I don't think you're going to find 1,000-mile loads that are paying $4 to $5 a mile. That narrative, I think, is coming, and it's replaced by everyone that entered the industry during COVID and saw some extreme rates that no one had ever seen before, at least for that extensive period of time, and that they carried on for a year or more. So now we're not experiencing those rates; they don't exist, and we're digging ourselves out of a hole that we all kind of jumped into as an industry, and we have a extreme amount of trucks in this market that we don't necessarily need. So circling back, if you are a carrier and you plan on using 49 CFR 371.3, please only use it when you need to. I don't see the point of flooding all brokers everywhere with requests for their billing to the customer directly. You book the load. You should understand your costs. You should understand what it takes to move your truck and be happy with the rates that you're doing that on. If you're not happy with that, then I do suggest that you learn how to sell your own freight or sell your own trucks. So go out and get some customers, develop some relationships with brokers so you have trust. So if you're using this particular regulation because you don't trust brokers, develop relationships with brokers. If you're not going to sell directly to shippers, develop those relationships with brokers and consolidate the lanes that you're operating in. Don't just go to Kingdom Come. Work in 2 or 3 lanes only, triangles, for example. So outbound out of your home domicile, use that as a head haul. Do a backhaul move and then come back on a head haul move. So head haul, backhaul, head haul, or head haul, backhaul, whatever you need to do to make it work, but don't be doing 2 backhauls and only 1 head haul. So and potentially down the road, I'll discuss and put together a presentation on a Tuesday trip about strategies around how to move freight as an owner operator and with a smaller number of trucks. If you need higher rates, raise your rates and negotiate. So don't sit there and accept lower rates just because that's the only thing that's being offered to you. Park the truck, wait for the higher rate. It may or may not come, but the worst thing that you can do is operate at a negative margin. So you can do that for a little bit of time, but to continue to do that over and over is going to cause you serious pain and put you in some very bad positions. So with that all being said, if you have any questions, you want to reach out, please do so. Driving forward at glcs.net. We're happy to field your comments. And everyone have a great day. We appreciate you watching.